following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Live tonight from Talladega Super Speedway, LSR TV is happy with you to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to our continuing coverage of the eSpeed Contender Series Bomb Track Fabrication Playoffs. We are high above the 2.66 mile Talladega Super Speedway as the round of 12 continues. This is the Darkmatter Designs 200, and we're so happy you're spending a Wednesday night with us out of your home for sim racing, and this week on the iRacing Esports Network. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, alongside Andrew Cardinale, Gary Weaver up top with you in the booth, with our producer downstairs, Hugo Louise, bringing us to you this evening. And Andrew, it was a critical race win for Sean Powell just 1 week ago in the round opener at Dover, because he is the only driver of 12 safe for what lies ahead. Nobody knows what these next 94 laps will entail.
Yeah, Jake is always the big unknown, Evan, and coming into Talladega tonight, it's going to be a long race. These guys are going to have to really practice attrition tonight, and that's not easy when the championship is on the line. Obviously, guys that are needing a big run, like Brad and Timmy Logwood Jr. starting on the front row, those guys are going to be probably trying to control this race. A lot more of these guys going from the back to the front, such as Malik Ray. Watch that 20 truck. He's going to be exciting.
You see the points coming into tonight. That win from Powell punches his ticket into the round of 8. Everybody else out there in the points are very tight. Matt Kingsbury is the highest driver on points. He's only 11 above the cut line. It pretty much him all the way through James Torrey, all still up in the air on points. I do think that Keith Stewart all the way down to the bottom, though, minus 26. He may already be in a winner-go-home situation. Talladega tonight, Kansas next week, before we make the next step into the next round. But as we get set to go racing, let's go trackside and introduce you to the LSR TV starting grid. Brad Neer will start this one from pole position as he comes in, the final driver above the cut line. He's joined on the front row by the 4 of Timmy Logwood Jr. Perry Snelson will start third position, with Brent Keith rolling off at 4th, and Marshall Berry rounds out your top 5.
Starting from 6 will be a 62 truck of Doc Stout. Then it's going to be Brandon Holder in the 5 down on the inside of row number 4. Doug Lemons to his outside. Sean Ryan rounds out the top 10 in 9th place, and that's Kerry Allen Stewart in 10th.
And then there is Matt Kingsbury in the 11th place position. Doyle Lawrence to his outside in 12th. 13th, Bobby Everhart. 14th will be James Hickson, and 15th is Tim Marlowe.
Marlowe's going to be joined. That's Gregory Thompson outside of row 6. James Torrey, 17th tonight with Mike T. Bruno at 18th. And we look back on row 10. It is John Verga inside of P19, and outside in 20th is Everett Lane.
Scotty Renscheld coming to you from P21 tonight. Then it's Sean Mulshick to the outside of him in the 15 truck. Brad Patterson comes to you from row number 12 with Sean Powell to his outside. Remember, Sean won at Dover last week. In row number 13 will be Malik Ray on the inside, starting 25th.
And then the rest of the 29 car field: 26th, Paul Bliss; 27th, Keith Stewart; 28th is going to be Ryan Lang, and Tyler Hayes rounds out the number 29 position.
Completely top to bottom of your LSR TV starting grid. This racetrack really needs no introduction. 2.66 miles, 33 degrees of banking, and a lot of speed as we go racing tonight for 94 laps, 250 miles from the fastest track that we'll see here in the playoffs. Again, the second race of 3 in the round of 12. A win, you move on. But I think a lot of drivers just hoping they get out of this race tonight in one apiece as the pace car dives down to the safety of the pit lane. As always, we're happy that you're with us at LSR TV at the iRacing Esports Network. Field in the hands of the Bernard. It'll be Brad Neer bringing us to the green flag as we go racing in the Darkmatter Designs 200 from Dega. Green flag in the air, first time up through the gears and into turn number 1.
Brad Neer already down to the bottom side, making his move pretty early. That's only the 32 truck leading the top lane. That's Brent Keith. Timmy Lockwood Jr. going to join Brad Neer on the inside and second.
Let's expect these drivers to try to get at least at a single file line down low very early. There's some 3 wide trailing out of the back end, but especially on this opening lap gear with the outside, not a good place to be. You saw a lot of drivers dive down low right away. That outside line will be back in about a lap and a half or 2 at most. But the drivers mid-pack not necessarily agreed on the strategy. More 3 wide now is coming up to the middle as the number 22 truck. That's James Hickson making an early charge.
Yeah, from earlier, from experience here racing is that, well, somebody's on the apron. There are 2 drivers on the apron, actually. Not sure why they're headed to pit road, but hopefully we'll get an update on that eventually. But some drivers usually take the very top side and drop to the back and just not really try and risk anything early on. They want to be in that mid-pack in case anything were to happen. But right now, side by side is Perry Snelson for the lead. Tries to get up to the top side. He's got help from that 62.
Those drivers had to come down to the pit lane, it would seem like, with some sort of a penalty. Not sure what could have caused that, unless Brad Neer, who qualified at first, having started on the outside, may have shuffled up the lines. But there's a lot of trucks now dropping it back. Marshall Berry wants nothing to do with the pack. Look at all these cars falling out. Even your pole sitter in the 9 drops back. A lot of drivers not wanting to be in this lead pack early, and it is going to give Doc Stout a huge run on the outside of turn 4. The driver who started inside of row number 2 going to go to the race lead after lap 2. The 62 now gets pushed to the race lead.
And of course, Evan, the non-playoff drivers pretty much up in the front. You can see that very evident with the exception of guys like maybe Doug Lemons, who is sitting 3rd on the inside lane. But mostly, it's all guys who are here just to race up in the front. But keep in mind, you can only drop so many drivers to the back before suddenly the guys who dropped to the back first are now in the front. So, I mean, yeah, you can drop to the back in self-preservation, but you can only drop so far back before suddenly you recycle back into the front. Right now, though, Mike Bruno leading that charge on the outside, got a great push from Everett Lane. Now Everett Lane going to go outside of Mike Bruno as Mike Bruno dropped down. That's going to be something to watch throughout this race. That top line can really get moving, and it seems like a lot of guys suddenly abandon it when they really shouldn't. It's really fast on top.
It does, but they need strength in numbers. Nobody's going to be able to make that outside lane work, and or by themselves, I should say. And as you see, the 24 car now be the next to go to the race lead. It is Lane, who started this race in 20th position, and after just 3 laps, he is leading with the assist to Team Car in the number 15 of Sean Molzik. So a couple of drivers making some moves early on. Quite the impressive charge to the front for those drivers right out of the gate. Those low-line racing entries make a noise right up and early. And the 19 division of Mike T. Bruno, who had been leading on the inside, he'll immediately jump up top. If you want, you can compete for the race lead every single lap at Talladega. Of course, when you're constantly making these 2-3 wide moves, Gary, up and down a racetrack, that's where you find issues, and that's probably why we saw a lot of drivers bail out early. This lead pack is only 11 trucks strong, and then there's an equally as big pack 12th on back. Those are all the trucks who dropped out of this one, obviously trying to play the long game and conserve these trucks. There are no fast repairs in this eSpeed Contender Series. You get in an incident, and your night is pretty much guaranteed to be done.
Yeah, you basically have to play as very careful as possible, and that's what some of those drivers are doing. And that second pack is actually being led right now by 3 playoff drivers, James Corey, Sean Powell, and Scotty Rhineshield. So they're definitely, of course, even though they did lay back, they're still making sure that at least their pack is single file. But up here, not so much in the front pack, as those top 3 drivers on the, well, rather top side 3 drivers of the 1931 and looks to be the also 22. They definitely want to try to make an attempt for this league right now, but with only 3 drivers on the top side and essentially 7 others on the inside lane, that's definitely not going to work out for this time.
It is difficult. You certainly have the numbers against you, and that's why you see drivers, I think, Andrew, abandon the outside of the racetrack as quickly as we do, as we should see them get a good run this time down the back straightaway. We'll see what they can do with that run off of the banking. But once it starts to go backwards, everybody fears that it's going to completely fall apart, and then it falls apart because nobody wants to be on it when it does, and everybody bails, and that's how that back line sinks. If it really crumbles, you're going to go all the way to the back. I promise you, none of those trucks at the inside are letting you in line, as we see the 32 of Brent Keith get lapped on the outside of the racetrack after he started this race in P4. He was one of those drivers that came down to the pit lane early. Still not sure entirely why we still have that many cars down. I would assume there had to be some sort of a penalty. I don't think that coming down pit road makes any sense. We've seen drivers drop out of the pack, but coming out of the pack and heading down pit lane, certainly two very different things. But the risk on the outside is if you don't make the move, it's a one-way ticket to the back of the pack. If you do not want to be a little bit antsy, that's where you ride around on the bottom. And we got teammates going after it now. Molsic going to go high off into turn 3.
And Evan, the other thing that really affects that top line, really hurts that top line and anyone that wants to get it going, is generally you might get one or two pioneers, I'll say, that go up there and want to make that top line work, but the rest of the guys that go up there, they're kind of just going up there to maybe get out of the bottom line, get out of some of the hecticness, but they aren't really prepared to make that top line go forward. They don't want to get down inside draft the door of the guy to the inside. They don't want to actually, put the work in necessarily. They're happy and content just running along. So you got to get guys that are really committed to getting that that top line going forward, and you also have to get guys that can understand, you can't push the second guy in line if he's pushing the guy ahead. So, I mean, you need the right chemistry on that top line, and it looks like we're starting to get that with the 15, 19, and 31, but I think that 15 might drop down in front of Everett Lane. There he goes. Teammates swapping positions there, probably to cool down the 15's motor.
Yeah, and if that is what those drivers wanted to do, that it's well executed for those teammates, as we mentioned. It used to be a lot easier to make a move like that when it was the tandem racing. Two trucks go off into a corner, push at each other. The lead car goes high, tucks in line. Instead, you kind of have to use the cars around you, and I think that's why Everett Lane didn't seem all that concerned with the 15 going to the outside. Probably said, all right, I've been pushing it for a little bit. Let's swap it up. Wouldn't be at all shocked if we see a similar thing happen in a couple of laps where that 24 goes to make a move to the outside, and then they again essentially just give him a break, and it would then be the 15 to push you, because right now he's out in the clean air. He's taking it easy. This 11-car lead pack has pulled about 2 seconds on everybody else. Well, I mentioned that secondary pack. There's a secondary pack and a tertiary pack even furthermore down the running order, nearly 8 seconds off. There's more cars not in the lead pack than there are, but they're not nearly as organized. So even though they may be running in single file, I think the sheer size of this lead pack is going to allow them to continue to stretch this one out. If we get any sort of a good amount of green flag racing in early in this race, again, 94 laps on the board and 9 complete this time.
And it's still a long race to go, but for now, some of these drivers have slowly started to catch back up within their single file drafting, so they're not really riding side by side. They want to get up to whatever pack they can, and in this case, well, pretty much 11th on back, 12th on back, essentially, has already caught up since some of these drivers were side by side for a while. So Paul Bliss in 85, he's on the top side. He had to move to go to the inside with the 41, but he decided not to, so I'm pretty sure he doesn't really want to at least doesn't want to stall the momentum out, as, yep, there he goes. He goes in right behind the 27 of Ryan Shields. Definitely want to be courteous very early on in this run.
And they're going to have to go to the outside because it is the 20 holding the inside. That is another truck getting lapped. That is Malik Ray. And we spent a good amount of time, Andrew, last week at Dover talking about the compare and contrast, the round of 16 versus at least the start to this round of 12 for Malik Ray after winning all 3 races to open the playoffs at a round of 16. He did not get a good result last week at Dover. Came into tonight only 4 points above the cut line. And right now, it is a smart move by the 20, I will say, to hold the bottom. I'm sure the lead lap trucks would appreciate it. Would have been a lot easier for them if he was high, but by staying low, he kind of gets swallowed up by that pack. He's not going to fall any further back, but he is 27th and a lap down. Not good at all if you think about what the live points would look like.
Yeah, definitely, but this gives him that chance to fight for that lucky dog here, Evan. If we get a caution that comes out soon, obviously he's the first truck now a lap down, so as long as he stays ahead of Brent Keith, and I'm not sure if Brent even tagged into the lead pack. Oh, what a big shake-up there. Perry Snelson got loose. Doug Lemons and Brad Patterson go to the outside. They get it going 3 wide and avoid that. That could have been disaster right there already on lap 12. Not really sure what started that, but Malik Ray, I think, doing, like you said, Evan, a good job of just getting into the pack and at least giving himself a chance to fight for the lucky dog. Not a great situation he's in, especially contrasted to the way round 1 went, but he's at least giving himself a chance here. And at Talladega, you almost have to count on at least 1 caution.
You certainly have to expect it's going to come at some point when you're talking about a field that has 29 trucks strong, all of them that took to the green flag at the start of this one. It is probably not going to be one of those races that goes with that incident. You never know. That's the thing about Talladega is, you know, for as much, Gary, as we say that this is a racetrack that anybody can win in, and it's absolutely true. I think that you have a lot better chance at beating Malik Ray and Sheldon Powell at Talladega than you do pretty much anywhere else on this playoff calendar. It still takes skill. You know, it is a little bit more, I think, of an even playing field, but there are some people that are very, very good plate track drivers, and none of that matters when a wreck breaks out. That's just wrong place, wrong time, right place, right time, depending on if you get through it or not. But you have to approach this race, despite the fact that it is Talladega and that concern is always there, like you would any other race. You have to strategize, you have to group up with your teammates, especially like we're seeing Bolzik and Lane do it. Once they got up front, they have continued to control the front of this pack. Having teammates here, I think, more important than anywhere else as well.
Yeah, this is where you can definitely control both lanes with your teammate. In that case, it could be Everett Lane on the top side and then Sean Mulzik on the low side, or vice versa. But right now, a little bit of a battle between the 2 and the 22. There goes Everett Lane on the top side, just as I was speaking about. But right now, actually, doing a great job as the inside lane stalls. Not sure what Sean Mulzik was doing there, trying to stall the momentum on the top side probably, but nonetheless, though, that was a great job by Everett Lane, just making sure that he also keeps his engine cool. That's another thing, too, is that you have to keep an eye on the gauge as much as possible and not let that thing overheat.
Yeah, you know, you can kind of just get to push it around the racetrack for a little bit and kind of lose focus, but those top two cars at the inside made a swap out again, so this time it is Lane now back in front of Mulzik, but 19 machine using the disadvantage. It is going to be Mike Bruno leading at the start-finish line. I do think the 19's objective was to clear in the Amsoil Chevrolet. Instead, he will have to stay up top. He's got that 31 machine of Ryan Lang working with him, but a very good start now, 15 laps in to this Darkmatter Designs 200. Everybody pushing down the back straightaway. The top 12 cars separated last time by less than 1 second.
And yeah, I think Mike Bruno is definitely going for the lead right now, but you have to get the 31 on the same page, and I don't think Ryan Lang is with the 19 of Mike Bruno. So Mike Bruno is really trying to pioneer this thing on his own and just hope that the rest of the guys behind him go with him and pick up on what he's doing. Right now, Ryan Lang still pushing that 19, but he was looking high the last time around through 1 and 2. We'll see what he does this time around. He may have just gone high to try and get some air, try and stall his momentum out actually to get back behind the 19 rather than to just get on the brakes. So we'll see what Ryan Lang does, but it doesn't look like he's on the same page there as the 19 at all, and that's really going to hurt that top lane versus a couple of teammates really controlling this race so far. Evan down on the bottom side in front of Doc Stout.
Yeah, certainly, and you know, Doc Stout, somebody else who we've talked a good bit about, is maybe one of the top non-playoff drivers in this. I'm not at all surprised that he is right up and in the thick of things. Look at that 31 machine, maybe wanted to step on down again. If you're laying up there on the outside of the front, or the outside, the outside of the outside row, I should say, you know, second car in line there, you're in a tricky spot because oftentimes you're pushing. It's very difficult, very rare that you get into the position at the 19s, and I think Mike Bruno was very aggressive when he pushed that 24 of Everett Lane to the race lead, because if you remember, Gary, when they made that first switch where it was Mulzik going to the outside, he went up, leapfrogged his teammate, tucked back down, and then they did the same thing back to the 19 about 5-8 laps later or whatever. So Bruno, I don't think, likes the position he's in, and I don't think Ryan Lang does either. So look how aggressive they are. Everybody pushing all the way down into the corner, about 195 miles an hour, as all 4 trucks were on top of each other, and they're committed to the outside, but you can only run up there pushing for so long. It is difficult to challenge with the inside. It's more so momentum, I think. You're going to get the spot or not. You can get there and get stuck for a long time.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to be, at least a personal thing is that I would not want to be the front person on the top side, but I mean, eventually that would have to happen, but right now it's just still a side-by-side, essentially equal battle between both the 15 and 24, and then also on the top side it's the 19 and 31, but add some more drivers on each lane, the next thing you know, it's definitely an equal battle, but on the back straightaway, it's kind of visible that you can see the momentum slightly stall out for at least one, maybe both lanes is that. Yeah, that's the most interesting part to me about super speedway. You can see the visible speed difference just from when somebody doesn't really start to push. Just like here in turns 3 and 4, the outside lane loses momentum, and then they gain that back just coming out of turn number 4 through the tri-oval.
The tri-oval doesn't technically count as a corner on the track map. Of course, it's your typical 4-turn tri-oval, 1 and 2. The banking at 33 degrees is where we head off to now. And if you want to get really technical, it's 32.4 in turn 3 and 32.5 in turn 4. I don't know who measured it to that accuracy, but we'll say 33 degrees all the way around. But that tri-oval in its own right, 16.5 degrees of banking, Andrew. That rivals the banking of some of the intermediate racetracks we go to. And you see those white hash marks all the way down the back straightaway. They go all the way through the corner. It kind of splits this racetrack up into 3 lanes. That outside line, they're above that first set of white lines. By the end of this race, you're going to have 2 lanes tucked down low. But watch when we head into the tri-oval here. You'll see another set of lines at the bottom of the racetrack. It's almost like another lane opens up right there with a 24 and the 15 dive down. It is so loose down on that inside line there, especially when you're pushing. It's a hold your breath moment every single time around.
Not only that, Evan, but it certainly plays into the finishes here at Talladega. Of course, the start-finish line moved towards turn 1 to promote better racing down there and actually get people to buy seats down towards turn 1. And it works so nicely that they have the extra room in the tri-oval, and of course the bottom might be the place to be if you want to go geometrical, but it's so much looser down there that if you're trying to push or even just sometimes holding on to these trucks or cars, you might get loose down there on your own. And I'm actually noticing a lot of these guys have the left rear kind of tucked out to the left. I wonder how their trucks will drive through there, especially in a pack, especially pushing like they are. So hopefully we'll see that kind of come into effect at some point tonight. I'm not sure if we will or not. But right now, these guys really holding even. This is surprisingly even. We haven't seen either lane really dissipate for more than maybe a straightaway at a time, even though we only have 4 trucks on the outside lane. And, well, the 4th truck being on the outside lane is Malik Gray. So watch out for that 20 again. He's going to make things aggressive, I think. And, of course, he's a lap down right now, so he's racing to stay in the lucky dog position ahead of Brent Keith.
And that's going to be a very critical battle because, again, we mentioned how that number 20 machine stayed low to stay only a lap down. Could it get swallowed up by the lead pack? Well, of course, you can notice those 2 in the pack, the 20 and the 32, just like all of our playoff drivers with that light blue number. Of course, on the spoiler and the splitter as well, with that very pastel blue color that signifies the drivers in the bomb track fabrication of playoffs. And right now, Ray winning out in that fight, which could become critical come down to the end of this race. You don't want to miss out on something. So I'm impressed with the 20 machine, but it does put him in a risky position. There's a ton of playoff drivers, Gary, that want nothing to do with the running up front, and they have dropped back. And these are 2 playoff drivers in Malik Gray and Brent Keith who have to race up here and race hard. And it's not even for position. All of that gambling on kind of a battle within a battle because they're racing with race leaders. We're also looking at one another to try to see who ends up P26 if we were to get a yellow. However, 22 laps into this race, not that far away. Green flag pit stops, maybe.
That's going to be the crucial thing is the green flag pit stops. And now the actual question will be, would the lap cars stay out or would they pit with the leaders? Because they would need to work with somebody, but usually there really wouldn't be anyone to work with, preferably, especially if you're not on the lead lap. And usually, most of the time, nobody would really want to work with you if you're a lap car, but come green flag pit stops, that just depends on how many head down pit road, how many stay out. So for Doug Lemons, he's the only, pretty much the only playoff bomb track fabrications playoff contender, along with James Torrey, who's actually just caught onto this. Same with Paul Bliss, Don Powell in the back, Sky Rancho. I was about to say Doug Lemons was the only one that was near this front pack, but not anymore. At least the nearest one that's on the lead lap, but that's definitely going to be changing in a few laps' time.
And we'll see how all of this plays out. 25 trucks in a lead lap right now. We wait to see if anybody is going to start to make those pit strategy calls. Of course, if everybody goes about 31, 32 laps on this run, and again, this is all assuming the race stays green. Green flag pit stops, by the way, a heck of a thing to watch at Talladega. Try to get these trucks wound up, oftentimes in a pack, from nearly 200 miles an hour out of 4 down to pit road speed, which here at Talladega Super Speedway is 55 miles an hour. You really got to cut that speed down by 3/4. But when you're in a position like that, you have to pit in a group. All of the racetracks, you kind of try to deke everybody else out. You try to do what the other guys don't. You have to pit with a group, or you're nothing out there without traffic.
Yeah, definitely, Evan. And I think the intelligent thing to do either way, if you're one of these guys, oh, Doc Stout turns the 31. Ryan Lane goes around. They save it. No, the 31 comes back up. They go around on the bottom side. Maybe no caution, but Doc Stout was just trying to side draft, I think, and just drove straight into the left rear of Ryan Lane and turned him around. And thankfully, I don't think we're going to get a yellow, and too many drivers were not involved in that, but that could have been a lot worse. They're going to get it sorted out, but those two definitely out of the pack, and that's really going to affect their races. But as I was going to say there, hopefully we can get a replay on the screen, but you know, you want to come in with people, but also you want to try and wait as long as you can, simply because if you come in early, you might be pitting with somebody who hasn't actually practiced pit entry. They might mess up and bring out a caution, whereas if you stay on the racetrack, you could end up, you know, being in the front all of a sudden when the caution comes out. So it's a catch-22, really. You just got to go with your gut, pretty much. I think there's benefits and drawbacks either way, but either way, make sure you come in with other drivers. And right now, a single lane now in the front. I think 8 trucks plus Malik Ray. Things have definitely changed.
They have changed up, and you saw in the replay that Stout actually did end up getting into the inside wall, and it was a very good save to not come back up in front of traffic for Ryan Lang, who then eventually did lock it down below the yellow line. 2-truck incident, no caution. And luckily, that whole episode happened in between when the first pack was going through, which they were racing in, and then that second pack was far enough behind them that the racetrack had cleared itself by the time that everything had kind of settled down, and that's why we are still under green flag conditions at lap number 26. Some new challengers to the outside, though. It is Brad Patterson with a push from the 20. It is a lap-down truck, and Malik Ray going to make a play for the top spot in this one. He is giving the assist to Patterson at this very moment. The top 4 trucks on track all started 18th or further back in the starting order. That's great stuff by those drivers to make these moves early and basically eliminate any sort of disadvantage a poor Q session gave them.
And currently right now, Brad Patterson is, well, I was about to say waiting for it. All right, so he's still currently, at least on track, the highest driver to make the most positions, 22 positions gained, and he is the leader. Of course, Sean Molzik still is, Everett Lane's got 18, 19 for Molzik, and then 14 for Bruno. That's changed a little bit now, as it's now 19 for Everett Lane as he moves to the lead for the time being. But right now, I'm pretty sure Brad Patterson is loving this out from the 20. Malik Ray, he's got the 4, Timmy Lago Jr. as well, just in case he needs that extra bit of a push.
You're always looking for that little bit extra. Certainly put you over the top. Doesn't hurt. Oh, yeah, you don't want to give a hit like that into the corner, though. A huge barble with a 42 machine as Malik Ray got him going off and into the corner. It was a good job by Patterson to save it, but better that, you just kind of hope the guy doesn't hit you too hard. And listen, Patterson's probably saying, listen, dude, I'm trying to go for the race lead, but I'm not trying to wreck the 20 machine all over him as we continue now. The pack 7th on the back, I want to briefly recognize because some of the cars up front have trickled down to the pit lane. But look at 7th on the back, 2, 3, 4 wide with a lap truck down on the inside of the racetrack for a brief moment. This is more intense than the racing up front, but they are 5 seconds back. If we do not get a yellow in this race, it is going to be hard-pressed for those drivers to make up 5 seconds. But they do have the advantage on car numbers. The lead pack, 6 trucks now. That secondary pack is 12. Despite all of that, the lead pack faster, surprisingly enough.
And Evan, look at some of the names in this pack. Scotty Reinshield, Tim Martin's actually eliminated, sorry about that, but Paul Bliss, I see James Torrey, some playoff drivers in this pack right now that really could be held back tonight, I think, if we don't get a caution. I mean, we saw one incident already that didn't bring out a yellow. If you spin to the inside, there's definitely a high chance that there won't be a caution. So you really have to, unfortunately, involve other trucks if you're going to want to get a yellow. It's going to be tough, I think, for these guys to make up that time like you were kind of highlighting. And realistically, if they're going to sit double wide like this, they're never going to go catch the leaders. They're just losing more and more time. Going to be about 6 seconds this time by the start-finish line. Scoring in timing and scoring updates, sorry. Yeah, 6.5 seconds. So they're just losing more and more time as now that top line pretty much disintegrates in this second pack.
It just kind of falls apart, and listen, that might be best for that second pack. Get single file. You have more trucks trying to catch these race leaders. We just said the gap was 5 seconds. It's now 6.5 seconds between the lead group and there's guys further behind, and it is a larger than 6 truck pack. Sure, there's a lot, surprisingly, of lapped cars in this lead group right now. Everett Lane, 4th position. Patterson's there along with Molzik, but Timmy Logwood Jr., that's a lap down truck. That's the number 4. You've also got Malik Ray in the number 20. He's a lap down. And so is Brent Keith at the tail end, but also 3 lap down trucks in this lead pack is giving them a little bit extra juice. More trucks, more speed. It's the way it tends to work out, but I feel like race leader is going to be in any moment now because we have reached that lap number 31 marker. So if you pit now, you can make this race on one more stop to the end. If that is indeed the call, expect it to happen shortly. Obviously, the 42 and the 4 not concerned, though, Gary, can't pit for the outside, and they're still up there challenging for the race lead.
At that 42, Brad Patterson is definitely saving as much as he can, essentially, by having somebody else as leaders come off turn 4. No takers as of right now, or at least as of this lap. So Brad Patterson is having pretty much anyone else behind him do all the work for himself, so he doesn't really have to waste anything or in terms of fuel. But here comes Malik Ray down to the inside. It's going to be 3 wide, 2 lap cars on the top side, and then the 19 of Bruno on the inside. And looks like he's going to hesitate just a little bit. Smart move by the 19 to not make it 3 wide and have everybody panic. But nonetheless, though, it's that Brad Patterson trying to save fuel as much as he can. But for the 15, though, and the 24, I want to know how they're trying to save fuel while they're still trying to challenge and stay up in the top spot.
And these guys, listen, they're going to fight for everything they can. You get that 1 bonus point, maybe could be the thing that puts you over the edge. Everett Lane's been leading a ton of them. I guess you can fight for the most laps later, but a lot of drivers seem to be concerned with racing it out. It is a relatively small proportion compared to the rest of the field, as, again, most everybody else in those other packs, single file. 23 trucks still on the lead lap, and still nobody wants to bite. And there's no overtime, no such thing as green white checkers already added in the iRacing service. So this race is 94 laps, no more, no less. So when we talk back on the logic engine that you had pointed out a little bit earlier, maybe try to pit a tad sooner, there's not a huge advantage to staying out longer. It's not going to hurt you like it would at other tracks with old tires, but unless these drivers think they could go 48 laps on a run and do a 1-stop, but then again, it should be any minute now, but they continue to stay out on track, top speed for your race leaders as they come into turn 4 again and not even a glance to the pit lane.
Yeah, no, 1-stop is not going to happen here, Evan. Some of these guys actually could have played a safer card and tried to come in around lap 20 or so and actually made it from there on 1-stop. Would have been a 75-lap race from there, and you can do that. One more stop is actually moved down to the bottom side from Brad Patterson in front of Everett Lane. That was pretty darn close. Now 2 lap trucks on the outside. You have 4 leaders in the bottom, and Malik Ray going to lead that charge. That's going to be an interesting thing to watch because Malik Ray would like to of course, get his lap back, but if a caution comes out, he can try and help himself out and put Brent Keith a lap down and force him into taking the wave around to get a lap back if he stays behind these leaders. So a bit of a mind game there that he can play, but back to the pit stops, I mean, realistically, you can try and come in earlier, and you're going to probably get away from some people if you have a teammate or two, or you can try and wait for some mistakes in the pit lane. I usually do that. You know, a lot of these guys don't have a chance to practice, pit entry. They might not be totally fresh on it. They come in and make mistakes. Suddenly you have a caution, and you're in the front of the pack instead of being in the midst of that. So everything has benefits and drawbacks, but we'll see what these guys do ultimately as Malik Ray continues to fight on the top.
He continues to dig on the outside, and how would it be for the number 20 machine to just lead this lead pack and then not even have to worry about getting the lucky dog? Because we've mentioned many times, tires not that big of a concern, and it would have to be an awfully timely caution to really force drivers to come down on a fuel game. But if that 20 machine can simply just get in front of the 42, technically be the last truck at the lead lap, you don't even have to worry about a wave around. And listen, Logwood, I'm sure Brent Keith, even with the 42 machine, I'm sure he'd appreciate that because then he would get the lucky dog spot. But Malik Ray had a nose in front last time by. He does not this time as we see more trucks head off to the pit lane from getting service. Your race leader's yet to do it, but the likes of Doyle Lawrence, Gregory Thompson, Kerry Allen Stewart, Tim Marlowe, all drivers exiting the pit lane. So that group that was 6 seconds back is all dropped off for the most part. A lot of them have come down pit road, but I mean, the gap continues to grow. It's now 10 seconds between this small group up front that's battling for the race lead and the monstrous pack deep in this field now that is, again, double-digit seconds off of your race leaders now.
And this is why you have to be very careful and strategize with everybody else. Whoa, oh my goodness, that was almost a massive accident there between that. Looks like the 41 is Sean Powell and the 48 John Verga. They're very, goodness, I don't know what happened to Verga, but he shot up the racetrack almost in front of Powell. More than likely tried to get to the outside at the last second, but now it's resulting in a wreck there on the back straightaway. That would have taken out everybody as the leaders have finally come into pit road.
And finally, drivers headed down to the pit lane, and everybody but Brad Patterson, it looked like, from that lead group down to pit road. The 42 stays out. I don't know if he just missed it or missed the memo. The lane came down into the number 24 machine. He may have sped. He was coming in awfully hot. Bolsick down, Bruno, Lemons, Nelson, Keith, all down pit road. That secondary pack now is going to assume the top spot once we see the 42 of Patterson to pit, whenever that moment does come, and it'll be right here. Yes, he needed somebody to go with, and it'll be the number 20 machine, Malik Ray, who drives it in very good on pit road. It was a great entry for him. The 42, though, not as quick, and you need to leave pit road with somebody. So curious if those drivers are going to get separated or if they hook up, as these drivers do come down into the box. They're ain't going to go for tires. The main concern is fuel. And a new race leader, Brandon Holder, takes it over now, as this group still yet to pit. To push it awfully close, though, into the high 30s now without a stop yet.
The interesting dynamic here, Evan, is do you take a full tank of gas when you come in? I don't really think you have to. Or if you do now, you can take even less fuel later on if you run all that tank out. So you could actually cut a few seconds off of your pit time if you're willing to go ahead and take a few fewer gallons. It's actually Doug Lemons, I think, going to lose these top three when we cycle back out. Everett Lane, Sean Molchik, and Mike Bruno. But you can easily come in and take a few less gallons, save a few seconds on the pit lane, and actually, I mean, if you're with a pack, maybe slingshot yourself ahead of that pack and make sure that you pretty much catch back with them, if that makes sense. So you'll exit ahead of them and they'll just come back up to you. Or if you have some teammates want to get ahead of the rest of the pack, maybe get out to the lead like a Stuart Haas move. So you never know. There's certainly opportunities for these guys. I think if they just took a full tank there, they can take even less later on. So I would actually watch for some quicker pit stops, maybe without tires, as Brad Patterson going to get passed by the 24, 15, and 19 here. Gonna probably try and get that draft. Definitely goes up to the top side. I'm not sure if he can actually latch on, though.
That second group basically all came down pit road together. I'm impressed they didn't wreck it because they were too wide when they actually got down and onto the pit lane. So all of them get serviced up. We're just about complete. Ron Verga in the number 48 machine. He is all on his own. It is a lonely trip down pit road. The number 48 truck, as he will come in, and that may just complete the cycle of pit service, because he was the last driver ahead of Everett F. Lane on the scoring pylon. This should wrap it up. Everett Lane going to maintain his race lead. You've got the 15 to Sean Molsick there. Also Mike T. Bruno, a little bit of a three-car breakaway, and a lot of drivers spread out now. Groups of 3 or 4 here or there. It's going to take 5 laps or so, I think, for these drivers to kind of get back into those larger packs.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of teamwork and essentially race effort between everybody if you want to try and catch up to the drivers in front of you right now. And that's probably why that initial second gap was 10 seconds, 10 and a half seconds just before pit stop. So that's why they're all side by side. It's why you have to completely get into single file, sort yourselves out as quick as possible, and then be able to actually catch up with those drivers, work together, even though it more than likely pains the drivers to not really be passing each other. You just have to be very careful on the throttle and double check your gauges as much as you can.
That's certainly something that's a lot easier said than done. I think, when you go through practice, drivers, you check your mirrors, you check your temps, you make sure everything's nice and well. Maybe not that bad now, as we are 40 laps into an on-day 4-lap contest that's still caution-free in the Darkmatter Designs 200 on LSR TV at the iRacing Esports Network. Get later on in this race, we're talking about 3 wide, 2 wide at minimum. Drivers just kind of get locked in, and I think once that red light starts flashing and your gauges all start lighting up, then you kind of notice. But Oftentimes when it gets to that point, it's a little bit too late. But I don't know if we're really going to have a situation like that. That was a very good, clean cycle of pit service. And race leaders, it is still that 6-car breakaway. You just divide it in two. So it's Everett Lane leading now, Molzik, Bruno. I mentioned those three. They were also racing with Doug Lemons, Brad Patterson, and Perry Snelson. They're still there. P4, 5, and 6, just 2 seconds off. And curious if they're going to be able to catch up to that lead group. They do have the help. There's a couple of lap trucks in front of them that they might be able to latch on to make a little bit of a bigger pack. But that second group still, you're talking about 10.3 seconds back to Brandon Holder, P7. I'd start sweating if I'm those guys.
Yeah, 6 trucks is going to go faster than 3 up in the front, but these guys still kind of trying to race. They're a little more organized in that second pack, Evan, but they're really still moving around an awful lot. I'm not really seeing organization in they want to go catch the guys in front, just organization as in they're all in one lane. It's not looking like they're actually really doing a whole lot to help themselves right now, which is weird to say, but realistically, it's just not looking like they're really pushing that hard. They're not really making any ground. They're really moving around on the racetrack. You see Brad near. I think he's maybe trying to get some air when he goes into the corner, also maybe just a bit of a late turn in, but a lot of these guys, especially towards the back of this little pack here, really not doing a whole lot to help. When you go up and side draft part of that pack, you're just going to worsen yourself and the guy that you're side drafting off. And I saw, I think, let's see, that was the 4 kind of side drafting the 41 for a moment. These guys, they're in line. I just think they need to do a lot more to actually try and go catch that lead.
They're not working to, I mean, they are now. They're certainly single file at the moment, and even that group's gotten split up a little bit. We can't say it's that huge pack anymore. It's 7th through 13th right now. Holder near, Ryan Berry, Ryan Shields, Stuart Powell, 7th through 13th. They're in line, then a big gap, and then it's Lawrence, Thompson, Stuart Torres. So they have been split up a bit, but it seems like they've learned something because they are running single file now. We saw the 2 and sometimes 3 wide early, Gary. That certainly wasn't helping them, but even getting single file, it doesn't look like it's working out much better for them.
Yeah, it's not working out much better for the pack that's just in front of them either, but for the time being, though, the pack that we were just talking about is the 7's going to drop back, and Stewart definitely taking the safer route, but for that in-between pack, the middle, from about 3rd place all the way through about 6th, a small pack of drivers, including just a couple lap cars, being 31 of Ryan Lang, I believe the 32 of Brian Keith, and the 20 of Malik Ray. Essentially, there's only about 3 other actual drivers in here, but both of them are side by side. They're battling, but so is the lead pack up front on the top side. They're actually on the top side, trying to get around some lap cars as well.
And then lap traffic is not normally something you think you're going to be dealing with at Talladega, but it was one of the factors that maybe hindered him a tad bit. Slow 62 machine up on the outside. And then you mentioned you got the 4 and the 7 there. That kind of makes it a 3-wide situation. Longwood's a lap down, 2 laps down, in fact, whereas that 4 truck is, or sorry, the 7, I should say, Keith Stewart's on the lead lap, so that's a buddy helping somebody out. We've seen a lot of those team plays thus far, and your race leaders even dealing with lap traffic. You mentioned the 71, the 28 down there, and it is kind of discombobulated this whole field. I will admit, as we close it on halfway, we'll take a quick look top to bottom in just a moment, but Andrew, not the start to Talladega that I was expecting, but it is what we have gotten, and you still have Malik Ray. If this falls apart, he's doing a great job right now, but a great job is 24th. So we can talk about his car 16 seconds on back and whatnot. He's just trying to get back onto the lead lap. This is still a very precarious position for him as he'll edge out Lemons with the nose at the start-finish line once more.
And the problem for Malik Gray is he now has to go catch the 28 and 71 who are in a pack ahead of him. It's not a very large pack, but neither is his. So he's got a lot of work to do right now to actually go up there and try to get back in the lucky dog position. Otherwise, you got to rely on a wave round, and who knows if you're going to get a caution after that, if you even get a caution in the first place. This is looking a lot like the Cup race this past Sunday, just without the few little cautions they had. Of course, we have no tires to roll into the grass, but right now these guys racing very clean and green. I don't see a whole lot of potential for a caution. Obviously, anything can still happen, especially for our next round of pit stops. Right now, coming to the midway point of the race here soon, things are remarkably quiet, and I'm just not sure what the best idea here to do is. I mean, if you're up front, obviously, you want to stay up front. Right now, we see kind of the Stewart-Haas-esque battle up in the front, I guess, or the line, the 3 cars up in the front. Then it's a smaller pack that isn't really helping themselves a ton. They were 2 wide just a couple of laps ago, and they still are. Actually, no. Were they just caught by the... No, okay, sorry. I got way messed up. The second pack is actually single file, but not catching anyone. Now I'm correct. The pack behind them, they haven't been helping themselves all race. And from then on, it's kind of just the same story. A few guys that are in line, but really not making any ground, and then a few guys that are just spread across the track. So I don't think we're going to have too many cautions in this one, Evan, which is really surprising, like I said.
And listen, it could still break out and completely change. But based on what we've seen, does it appear to be the way that this one is going to be. We are now, though, past the halfway point in this Darkmatter Designs 200. So let's take a look at our iRacing midway race break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, and many more. At lap number 48, it is Sean Molzik leading this race in the number 15 machine, with a push for the 19 to Mike Bruno scored in second. His teammate Everett Lane a little bit further more behind than I think he would like. He's scored right now third, and then Brad Patterson has caught up from P4. They're going to go 3 wide with the 20 machine up the middle of the racetrack. It's Malik Ray who's making all of this happen. Their leaders are 3 wide with lap trucks on the middle on the outside. As you've also, it'll shuffle up the running order here, so we'll wait just a moment. Scoring's going to update. It'll be Molzik still leading, Patterson P2, Bruno third, Everett Lane fourth, Doug Lemons rounding out your top 5. Harry Snelson currently scored 6th. He's at the back of this lead pack. Then an 11.3 second jump back to a side-by-side battle for 7th and 8th, where Near has 7th, and it's Holder in P8. Sean Ryan scored 9th, and Marshall Berry rounds out the top 10 right now.
Keith Stewart amid this second pack in 11th place, and it's Scotty Reinshield as well. Sean Powell currently 13th. He's the only truck that's safe tonight. That's Doyle Lawrence a pack behind them in 14th position. Gregory Thompson in that pack as well. Then Kerry Allen Stewart in 16th. James Torrey 17th. Paul Bliss 18th. John Verga and James Hickson both on their own round out the top 20.
And then at 21st through 29th, Tyler Hayes currently 21st. He's about to get passed by pretty much the rest of the pack that's running here. 22nd is it going to be the 20 of Malik Ray. And then it will be Bobby Everhart in 23rd, 24th to Marlowe, 25th, Brent Keith. King Lago Jr., 26th, 27th is Ryan Lang, 28th is Doug Stout, and Matt Kingsbury has some issues earlier on in the race, so unfortunately he is pretty much under the cut line right now in the 29th.
And that's a look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com to sign up today. And if you go to iRacing.com/membership, 40% off your first time subscription. That's anything from 3 months to 2 years. More info at iRacing.com/membership. And it's so difficult to follow all this. Again, I encourage you to just keep looking up at the top of the screen, looking at the numbers, look at the intervals, and to make sure you know who is where, because half the cars in any single frame are lead lappers and the other half are lap down cars. It's a beautiful mess right now, watching Malik Ray try to fight to get his lap back or to stay at a lucky dog spot to see Sean Molzik try to get back with his teammate Everett Lane, but at the 19 machine, Mike Bruno sticking his nose in the middle, not having any of that. So there's a lot going on right now, considering that this race has not had a caution inexplicably through 51 laps now at Talladega, as we start to count down towards the end of this one, and we kind of just sit and wait. Still a pit stop to come. A lot can come out of that, but you have to feel like something's going to happen soon.
Yeah, this is impressive, and of course that fuel window is actually going to open up as Brad Patterson gives Malik Ray a heck of a shot out of turn 2. That's a scary place to bump, but that fuel window is going to open up here soon, Evan, and that's really going to change things up again, because I think this pack, or I guess this field in general, that has gotten really spread out and only recently kind of came back together in the front, is going to get even more spread out, because there's going to be different agendas every which way you look. So these guys can come in probably in about 6-7 laps, maybe a little bit more safely, or they can run this tank out and go to about lap 75 or so and come in then. So there's certainly some different agendas. You could come in around 60, you could come in around 75. We'll see what these guys do. Of course, we have guys on the outside now up in the front. You have guys on the inside and everywhere in between, and you even have that second pack trying to maybe catch that front, but they just are not going anywhere.
They just can't make up ground. They have made some progress, and ironically enough, we talk about you got to get single file, you got to work together, and it's once they go too wide that they make up about a second and a half. I think a lot of that might be your race leaders are just so jammed up in this pack that, 6 cars, again, it's a 6-truck lead pack. The group you're looking at right now is 10 trucks. It's a 10-truck lead group. Nearly half of them are lap-down trucks. Malik Ray is a lap-down truck. You've also got lap-down truck Brent Keith, Bobby Everhart, and Tim Marlowe. So it's just difficult. I think the lead pack is slowing down, though, Gary, more so than that second pack is speeding up.
And just as you mentioned that, there goes the 42 to the inside. Brad Patterson finally gets by and threw it to the lead from leaving Malik Ray up on the top side. But like you mentioned, Devin, yeah, this front pack is not exactly helping each other out. It's got to be not exactly working. It's just Malik Ray trying to get up to the, at least past the leader or stay just behind the leader as much as possible. Trying to get that lucky duck position in the event if we do get a caution. But Brent Keith is essentially pretty much at the inside line, almost at the very back of this low pack that we have here. So there's that, along with just a few other random lap cars here that are just sitting here just running their own race. It's not really working out. It's a very close moment there. Goodness gracious, that was a close moment there in the tri-oval between a few lap cars. There's the 48 of John Virga finally gets back in the draft and behind the lead lap car. So this is, if anything, this is only just a little bit of a brewing caution. It's not a caution yet, but it definitely looks like it will be one eventually.
And those 2 lap trucks trying to hitch a ride on the back. I don't know if they're going to be able to, but certainly doing their best. James Hickson and John Virga, I think they've caught the draft, and they have. So now we can officially say that more than half of the trucks in this quote-unquote lead pack are lap-down trucks, and more than half of the trucks that are lapped down are in the lead pack. It is insane. What we're looking at now is Molsik can make a move to the outside. That is one of the few battles that is for the race lead as the 15 goes to the outside. Again, having not been able to get back with his teammate in quite some time as he works on the outside, and it's Malik Ray who's a little bit timid to get on the back bumper, but he eventually does. The 20 machine is somebody who really needs to be nervous after having a bad week at Dover and having a poor result thus far for the Talladega Super Speedway. He does not need this thing to go green to the end, but if pit stops, like we mentioned, that at least one more trip down to the pit lane still due up, and I'd put the magic number on that at about 10 laps away until that second and what would be the final time drivers would have to come down for green flag service and get fuel is nearly just 10 laps away at this point. As we see the 19 machine charge at a 4, and it looks like it'll be Mike Bruno back to the race lead. And the assist on this goes to Molsik as we sprinkle a little bit more 3 wide into the mix with the 71 looking high from a lap down.
And now they go back down to the bottom slide, leaving Malik Ray in the middle with a couple of lap trucks trying to go around him on the outside. Will Malik go up and block? No. This is a really interesting situation for the 20 truck because, of course, he had a terrible weekend at Dover. Now he's not really in a position to win at the moment here at Talladega or even have a good points day. So, I mean, he's going into a must-win situation at Kansas, which obviously he definitely has the speed to go win at Kansas. But as a driver, do you want that kind of pressure on your shoulders? You can go maybe get a top 5 and move on, or you can have this must-win situation. And, I mean, which one is more preferable to you, Evan?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can look at it. And listen, I'm never going to claim to be a good driver, but I can tell you that if I'm these lead lap guys, this is stressing me out. I do not like having all these extra trucks in this mix, and I have to feel like that's got to rattle you a little bit. Now, I'm not saying it's going to make some of these guys completely fall apart. They're very good at what they do. We've seen that over the course of the couple of weeks we've seen thus far in the playoffs, and I think these drivers will be able to weather the storm quite well. But I would much rather have 6 trucks around me than, this 12 or whatever this number has grown to with all of these lap trucks in a mix, because you never know what can happen at Talladega, and just having more things to hit going a high speed around you is never a positive. So I wouldn't be surprised even if some of these lead lap guys maybe pit a little bit early, just try to get away from these other trucks.
Yeah, something that's also stressing me out a little bit too is that, especially with all the lap cars around, it's not the most helpful thing. Now, Malik Ray is finally retired to the inside lane, or giving up the outside lane, I should say, for better wording. But oh boy, a little bit of a close moment there between the 32 and the 42 there. As looks like, I think Brent Keith is actually trying to side draft the 42 of Patterson, but nonetheless, though, that's another thing, is that even though pretty much that the 20 is more than welcome, or any lap car is more than welcome to really race for their lead back, at Talladega, it's not really the best place, as there's a lot on the line, and Malik Ray was coming off of a not so great run. He'll dive to the inside. Is he headed to pit road? Yes, he is. So never mind. He's headed to pit road all on his lonesome too. So that's not going to help him out at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's very early for Malik Ray, lap number 58. He's going to have to go right now, what would be, I believe, 36 laps to be able to get to the end of this race. Certainly a doable number, don't get me wrong, but all by himself, I can imagine that would have been a decision he made unless he had to. Maybe he didn't get it filled up enough last time.
Yeah, you know, I talked about maybe filling up the fuel tank a little bit less and, you know, trying to save some seconds in the pit lane. It's certainly a possibility. It's really bizarre that he comes in right here, though, especially with no one else, not even another lap truck. It's really interesting to me. It seems like he's kind of just independent in general. Of course, when he was having his good times through round one, you know, it seemed like he was just himself, and it wasn't like anybody was really associated with him. So this is really interesting from Malik Ray. Maybe he's just his own thing, and I would think he would at least want to be partnered with somebody in this field. I don't know. I'm kind of speechless right now.
Anybody's
watching
better than
20.
nobody.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. As long as you can go faster than a single truck, you're in a better position than you would be. So I literally am speechless, in a bit of a stupor right now, Evan. I mean, obviously, we've got to trust him a little bit. He's won 3 races, but at the same time, I don't understand how this one's going to work out. Obviously, there's still a lot of race to go. Still, you know, almost 40 laps. So we'll see how it goes for him. And, well, wish him nothing but the best. But this is going to be interesting watching the 20 try to come back from this. And also want to mention that in this championship battle, the playoff battle, Matt Kingsbury is 31 laps down. Had some issues earlier on. Currently in 29th in the pit lane. That is about as bad of a night as you could have. Literally dead last.
He came into tonight with the biggest margin on points, plus 11. I don't even think that's going to be enough to counteract this, so he's going to have to go into Kansas. I still think with a shot at racing his way in on points, but certainly if he does advance, he'll have to look back on that good result at Dover as the saving grace, because it has not been his night at Talladega. And just another quick point on Malik Ray before we close out that story. For as much lap traffic that we have been talking about, it is remarkable that he is so alone on the racetrack right now. I don't think you could try to be further away from anybody else than he is. He's going to get caught somewhat soon by this lead pack, but at that point, you would be talking about Malik Ray falling 2 laps down. He's completely out of the conversation for the lucky dog, which was his main concern, and it just crumbles apart from there. Even a yellow, which is the thing that he's kind of been banking on, Gary, for the last, I don't know, 60 laps of the 63 that we've now run. Even that's going to save him right now, because he would be trapped way back behind Keith Everhart. You got Marlo, Verga, and Hayes all in front of him in the fight for the lucky dog position, and this lead pack is going to catch him in about 4 laps, maybe tops.
Yeah, if you think that pit strategy doesn't really, like, essentially filling up your fuel a little bit less, you think it's a good idea, and of course it is, but sometimes it could hurt you, and unfortunately 20 is a result of that. But on the bright side, though, at least for the moment, he's still in the race. Unfortunately at Dover, he ran into some extremely bad luck, got involved in a wreck and a few early laps, but right now, though, looks like his chances are quickly slipping away. He's got a few more seconds left to hope for a caution, but at this point, it looks like it wouldn't even help him, even if he was 2 laps down. So, to the essentially conversation about the point standings, though, I mean, Andrew mentioned Matt Kingsbury earlier, of course, and then there's also the 7 of Keith Stewart, who came in 26 points out, who is essentially in a must-win position, as he started 27th earlier tonight, but right now, though, he's only 14 positions up from where he is, roughly 9 positions now, actually. So essentially Keith Stewart's still in that must-win position, and then there's pretty much everybody else who definitely it's going to be extremely scrambled after this race.
It'll scramble things up, that's certainly the case, and you know, this could still be far from over, but Malik Ray once again is now battling with this lead pack, but a fight now just to stay a lap down as opposed to being 2 laps down. is a rough one as we see trucks on pit road. In fact, exiting pit road now, I should say. Brandon Holder, Brad Neer, along with Keith Stewart. So 4 trucks just now exiting the pit lane. They came in from what was deep. They were the leaders of that secondary pack, so they're going for that short pit strategy. I guess at this point you try to throw anything at it. You throw mud at the wall and see what sticks to see if you can try to figure something out. A short pit call is not going to get you 10 seconds, but maybe if these race leaders have this headache to the end of the run, they might be able to do something with it. But without a yellow, admittedly, I think all of those trucks that we have been seeing fall further and further back throughout the night, Andrew, basically fighting for, at best, 7th, I think is where that cutoff was.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's really just a matter of gaining what you can in your respective pack. If you're in the front, awesome, you played this thing right. If you're not, I don't know if you can overcome the gap. I think before the yellow, or not the yellow, before the pit stops, it was somewhere still in the nature of 10 seconds or more. So, I mean, unfortunately, this is the way it works out sometimes for the guys for the back. Again, you can only go so far back. Sometimes you either have so many guys going to the back that eventually you have maybe 3 left up in the front before things recycle back to the guys that first went to the back being in the front, or you have so many people go so far back that you don't get a caution and they play the pit strategy wrong or aren't quite as fast in the pit lane, and they lose even more time, and suddenly they're a half lap down after 8 laps. So 94 laps, it's a long time. It's 2 pit stops at the very least, and anything can happen in that span of time. I'm very surprised, not that people tried to get out of the pack in general, but that they stayed out of the pack for so long, expecting that yellow after the first 15 or so laps and went green. After that, you kind of have to start pushing back, don't you think? And these guys didn't. They kind of just stayed back there, and you see the effects of that now.
That's the, well, we saw a ton of drivers do that. Listen, there's always a group, but I was surprised, I will say, for how many drivers wanted to make that play early in this race. We saw drivers hitting very early, which I still think has to be the result of some sort of a penalty. We haven't had a yellow to ask anybody over the radio, so can't really guarantee you anything on that, but we did see drivers, even cars that qualified up front, just drop out of the pack, get back a little bit, and it's not a terrible decision. But I think the difficult part is, Gary, you can only, I think, fall back 2-3 seconds or so. I think that's about enough. Where there's a wreck in front of you, you've got enough of a buffer to slow down, but also you need to be close enough to be able to get back up there. Once those guys hit double digits, I think it was over for them at that point. Not to get ahead of ourselves, with about 25 laps still left on the board, but the battling up front continues. That could go downhill at any moment. But Brad Patterson going to get pushed to the race lead by Bobby Everhart, who's the first truck a lap down.
Now it's went downhill when the 28 almost made contact with Sean Molzik. That was a bit too close for my comfort. Jeez. Nonetheless, though, Everett Lane not having any of it. Sean Molzik following up to the top side. But like you mentioned, that, well, oh goodness, everyone's just leaving that poor 42 out to dry, essentially. That is, yeah, I don't know. But this is definitely a Stuart Haas type of move here. Nobody wants to work with anybody else. But ironically, though, I actually believe they are all Chevys, and they are, and then there is the 42 in the Toyota. So I mean, this is a bit familiar.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to play. That is quite the orchestrated effort, and it's only 2 trucks doing it, which I think makes it a lot more impressive than when you talk about 4 trucks or 4 cars per se, with what we saw over the weekend with Stuart Haas at Dega just on Sunday. Listen, Lane and Patterson, or sorry, I should say the 24 of Everett Lane and the 15 of Molzik, those team cars have been working together for some time. The 19 machine split them up a little bit mid-race, but other than that, I mean, it's been them. And the thing that helps is everybody else knows the 24 and the 15 are fast too. They could have probably, everybody not being those two, stayed low, helped the 19 out and challenged them. But listen, at some point the favors are going to come to the end, but I don't think a lot of drivers want to make enemies right now. And clearly the 42 of Brad Patterson very aware that there's no allegiances helping him out up front.
Yeah, and at this point, I think if you're up in that front pack, you want to make as many friends as you can because you want to stay in that front pack. Obviously, it's very detrimental if you get caught outside of it. Granted, they still have to pit. The closest cars are 30 seconds back. And that's Doyle Lawrence, Gregory Thompson, Kerry Allen Stewart, James Torrey, and Paul Bliss. So some title contenders in that group that is 30 seconds back. That's bizarre, but that's what happens when you go 70 laps green flag here at Talladega, and you have guys that are a bit scared to get up on the front and mix it up. And you know, sometimes it's good to have that bit of a fear factor and to go to the back in self-preservation. But sometimes it comes back to bite you, like it is here tonight, Evan. And even if we get a caution and they catch back up, they lost a chance, and you want to always be in a chance to win the race. They would have lost the chance for 70 laps if this went green. So obviously, they still have chance for a mulligan, but you never want to take yourself out of it. If we go green from here, a lot of drivers have taken themselves out of it.
Yeah, one caution flag, and everything that we've been kind of talking about and analyzing for the last half hour or so doesn't matter at all. But that's the way it looks at this moment. And the way that all of this is played out is unconventional, but not impossible, not improbable maybe even. Talladega, you never know what you are going to get, and certainly there is a clear difference in the strategies. But one thing that we like to ask drivers, and it wasn't really a factor into tonight, if you missed this right off of the bat, Sean Powell with a race win at Dover last week, he's locked into the round of 8. Everybody else for points, and I said everybody but Keith Stewart down at the bottom. Stewart was negative 26. I think he needed a win if he wanted to advance. But everybody else, from the highest driver up based on points, Matt Kingsbury plus 11, to the lowest driver, James Torrey minus 5. That can all still work out on points. When you start to look at next round, when we get to Kansas, it's a question we're going to ask people after tonight, I'm sure, depending on who finishes up front. What do you do to defend a race lead? Do you drive a little bit differently in points race? And the fun thing that I think always about asking that question, Gary, is it relates exactly back to what Andrew was thinking about. Sometimes with these drivers dropping out of the lead pack, they're trying to be too safe or try to overthink things. And by not just going out and racing, you overthink it, you drop back, you try to play it too safe, and you take yourself out of the race. So we always ask drivers, are you in a points race? You're up by 20. Do you not go for passes up front with the risk of wrecking that race car being there in place of just simply ride it around? As race leaders in this time, looks like Lane, Bolsick, Bruno, all of those top 6 trucks are in for their final stop. And I think they all get it nice and clean. And sometimes back to that point just to close it out. Sometimes it's just better to go out there and race and let the points figure themselves out.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that 15, he actually stayed out for a half second. He hesitated, and then he dived in right after he saw everybody else behind him was pitting. So definitely a smart choice by Sean Mulzick to lay off as much as possible for him to be able to at least make sure that he can still either pit or stay out when needed.
Race leaders in, back out onto the racetrack. It looks like leading this group off is going to be Gregory Thompson. First of a few of these trucks to cycle back out and onto the racetrack. The 24 to 15 machine, as you see the outside cars blowing by. Lane a little bit quicker actually than his teammate on the pit road exit machine. And the 15 machine of Bolsick, I should say, going to tuck it behind them. Those two, though, very quick. Here in the 24 machine, did decide to go with left sides, but that was a significantly faster stop by those two compared to the rest of the group, and they had just made this a 2-horse race because Mike Bruno's way behind it, and then Lemon's even further back. That was a very good exchange, I think, for Mulzick and Lane to separate themselves. Obviously coordinated, should say.
Oh yeah, and the only way that these two could make their race better at this point would be if they had 2 more teammates. That was a great coordinated effort there in the pit lane to get away from the rest of the pack for a while, and be it that we only have 20 laps to go, they're at least going to keep themselves up there for probably the next 10 laps because they're going to have to mount a charge behind these two, and that's going to take some serious coordination to actually get up there and challenge them. Plus now you have Paul Bliss getting into the fray with these two, so they totally shed Mike Bruno, as loyal as he seemed to be, and they've really just made it a low-line racing race. It's really what this is at this point. We've seen this since the start of the race. They have no championship hopes at this point. They're just out here to come win the race. So they've done a great job of controlling this thing all night long, and now Paul Bliss might actually help them stay up to par. Of course, 2 trucks won't go as fast as 3 or 4. Now Mike Bruno on his own. Then you have Bobby Everhart and Tim Marlowe, and then it's still even more spread out from there. You go all the way back to Doug Lemons, Brent Keith, and Perry Snelson before you have any more than 2 trucks in line.
we see now, as we have cycled through the running order, that 30-second deficit, and again, a lot of the trucks a lap down, a tad bit misleading. We've now cycled through everybody, I believe, is pitted minus maybe one or two here or there, but for the most part, your race leaders have pitted a second time. Everybody good on fuel now to the end. Always a chance the yellow comes out. You might want tires if you're further back, but I think we are done with trips down to the pit lane for this race if these drivers can help it. And there are less than 20 laps to go in this Darkmatter Designs 200. And clearly the call by those two cars, the low amount of raced entries, has worked out because Laney DeBolzik 6 seconds in front of Mike T. Bruno. Oh, there's a big wreck at turn 4. There's the caution flag. First one on the night, and it is a brand new race. And a playoff driver, Doug Lemons, is involved in this one, and so is Brent Keith in the 32.
And just complete miscommunication there in terms of placement, but that's what happens. Not sure what this, I think what Doug Lemons was thinking there is that he wanted to move down and take the 32 with him. He moved up back to the top side, but the 32 had so much momentum, tapped him once, got the 70 completely, got the 70 completely pretty much turned essentially at one point, then actually got caught on the front end, so not really sure what happened there, but definitely take another look at that.
Yeah, the 70 machine makes a move to the inside on turn 3 on his own. I think he wanted the 32 to come with. I think the 32 of Brent Keith is thinking, I'm a lap down, I need to pass you. It's that same thought process that we saw at a Malik race. So the 70 goes low, that's on his own, there's no contact there, and then the 32 doesn't follow him. The 70 is like, well, I need him, I can't get past. He goes back up to the outside, and the 32, who I think is trying to pass Doug Lemons to get a lap back, stays in the gas, and the 70 basically pulls up, spins himself over the nose of the 32. If that's 40 laps to go, I think the 32 lifts and there's not an incident. But that's Brent Keith fighting hard to get a lap back, and in the end turning your race, one of your race leading trucks, one of the guys up front, and all of a sudden we wipe the slate clean. Everett Lane is not going to come down pit road again. He is good on fuel, but we are going to have 17 trucks at least back into this race, and I believe Paul Bliss at the 85, one of your playoff drivers, will be the wave around.
That he will, and of course, you mentioned Brent Keith racing to get onto the lead lap, but you can't be the caution, of course, and now his race is totally over. He goes to Kansas in one of the worst possible situations, lined up there with Matt Kingsbury in a terrible situation. You can't be the caution. You have to make sure that you don't put yourself in a position to where suddenly you're going to be the reason that somebody gets the lucky dog. You have to put yourself in a position to where if somebody else messes up, you get the lucky dog. And Paul Bliss, unfortunately, was in that situation, not the guys that were racing for that right there. So Doug Lemons pretty much just got shunted for no reason. You can't fault Brent Keith for racing, but at the same time, it was all just a bad situation, and really just, I think he should have backed out. But, of course, we can say anything up here. They're the ones holding the wheels.
And they, I'm sure, are going to be wheeling it, because we should be in store for a thrilling finish coming up from Talladega Super Speedway. So as we work under the caution flag, first of the night, we'll take a quick yellow of our own. We'll step aside, and when we come back, a battle for the race win from Talladega is going to get a whole lot more exciting than all 77 laps that have been completed thus far. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the eSpeed Contender Series on the iRacing Sports Network. Everett Lane looking for the race win. It's been him and Sean Bolzik's race to lose, but it's a new game with 15 laps to go when we come back. to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing.
Race lead to the inside goes Logan Clapman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save.
Looks to the outside as Kroenke goes off. De Jong into second place.
I'm going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
I tried, there's contact though.
Slide left of the racetrack. Chris Benner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the Parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cutback here. Get the run out the Parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
He has done everything he could have done to try and get himself into the championship picture. But 2018 has not been his year. 2018 has not been Gregor Hutu's year. Despite it being the last chance for, oh my word, have we just seen Matt Backham overtake Martin Kroenke on the final lap of the motor race? We have! Matt Backham takes the victory, Hutu second, Gregor Hutu in second place. What have we just seen? Martin Kroenke in third, and the title will go down to Kota. My word! I do not know what I have just seen. Silverstone a couple of years ago was the craziest finish I've ever seen to a World Championship Series race until today. And I'm just having a look. He doesn't... What did Martin Kroenke even do there, James?
I think he was out. I honestly think he was out. I haven't seen anything like this before. He was struggling to get the power on. I don't think he was out. Maybe he was wanting to give Matt Backham the victory because he was quicker, because he still had the championship. Oh my goodness, Martin. I think we have just seen the defining moment of the season. I have no idea what Kroenke's done. We'll have to ask him for an interview. But Gregor saw an opportunity, sent one down to the inside on the final corner. And I think that Kroenke wanted to give the victory potentially, maybe not second, but this title's alive, Will. And De Jong has been given...
And back live from the Talladega Super Speedway with a restart due up with only 14 laps to go in tonight's Darkmatter Designs 200. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the eSpeed Contender Series of the iRacing eSports Network. Evan Pasoko, Andrew Cardinale, Gary Weaver upstairs with Hugo Louise bringing us to you for the, what is, I guess, total round 5 of these bomb track fabrication playoffs, but it is the second race on the round of 12. And gentlemen, after a caution-free race, Andrew, that looked like it was going to come down to strategy and playing the right calls, is now going to be just another Dega finish. 16 trucks in the lead lap with a possible win and a ticket into the round of 8, hanging in the balance as the front row, all non-playoff cars. It's the team set of Lane and Bolsick who have dominated to this point.
You, Larry Mack, because this changes everything. There are no more knowns, there are only unknowns with just, what, 14 laps to go this time coming to the restart. A couple of teammates on the front row, then it's everybody who wants a win or needs points, and it's going to be crazy here for 14 laps.
Race car going to be added in this time. Something tells me this is hardly going to be the last race start we get on tonight, but it'll be 80 laps complete, 14 to go, and it is the first restart of the night. As we wait for the number 24 machine to get off it into the gas, look for him at a 15 to coordinate it. Green flag in the air, we're backing away from Talladega. Not surprised, the 24 is going to clear into one. His teammate Molzik tucks in behind, and those two hooked back up as everybody with a very spread out restart down into 1 and 2.
Great job by everybody to get single file quickly or as quickly as possible, as Sean Powell is going to fall in behind the 5 of Brandon Holder. And right when I say that, well, there goes 42 to the top side. That's Brad Patterson on the top side of that number 27, a Sky Rancho. He's definitely eager to try and gain a position. But right now, the closest 3 playoff drivers to go to the top side to avoid the 19 of Bruno. Bruno is going to stay on the top side or low side. 9 is not going to go with him. Brad Neer does not want to let any other non-playoff contender involved in this race.
That would certainly not be what you want to see, but here comes the move to the outside of the racetrack. It's the 9 machine of Brad Neer. He was only 2 points above the cut line coming into this one, and he wants to go for the race win. It's Keith Stewart pushing him. Stewart comes into this one as well. If you remember, courtesy of what happened earlier in the season, Keith Stewart right there in the number 7 truck. He is way out. He needs a win to advance. With a 26-point deficit, it's basically his only way in. So there's a lot on the line for the 3 trucks at the outside. Not nearly as much at the line for those down low. And we'll see who wants it more side by side, 3 rows deep into the corner.
From the pole to the back to the front, Brad Neer now battling for the lead once more on the outside of Everett Lane and Sean Molchik. Those guys, teammates on the bottom side, they aren't really working with Mike Bruno at all. They were trying to block Bruno and Neer on the top side. Now, Keith Stewart trying to help out the 9 truck to get to the lead, and, well, they've got a helper of their own in Brandon Holder. So that top line looking pretty strong, I think, better organized than the bottom line. But then there's this secondary pack that's really just a few car lengths off of these 6 leaders that are kind of just sitting back and waiting for a wreck, I think, to happen, because they're not really wanting to advance too much, it looks like, but they're certainly there to where they're not going to lose this draft at all. They're going to be right there in case something happens, but they have at least enough time to where if these 6 ahead of them wreck, they have a couple of seconds of reaction time, and that's why they need it right there. Brad Neer and Keith Stewart almost had something bad happen.
That nearly got out of hand, but everybody is okay, and you can certainly see it's a lot more aggressive, the pushing and shoving into the corners than it was earlier. Impressed with this top 6 breakaway, though. They're not going to stay gone for long. The rest of the pack is about to swallow them up, and it is going to get really messy. But I don't know if any of these 3 trucks here on inside or outside, either 6 of them have lifted since this race restarted. It is, and remember that point that I made very early on to Gary about those lines on the racetrack and how it kind of splits this up into 3 lanes, and how very early on, like they are right now at the back straightaway, that outside line will stay kind of in that painted second line. Watch as we head down into turn 3. They're going to enter the quarter there, and then they'll trickle down the hill, down to the point where nearly all 4 tires right there below the line. Awfully tight on corner exit.
Yeah, that is that's something that's pretty common here. It's also kind of entertaining for the most part, but you definitely have to be careful when you're doing that. It's the very same thing. Of course, that 4th lane essentially at the very bottom being used, but right now it's still, of course, playoff contenders versus non-playoff contenders on the top side versus the inside lane, and then there's just a whole field of cars behind who are trying to just scramble for whatever position that they can. But that number 9 and that number 7, those 2 drivers are not giving up for that position. Same with the 24 and the 15. And then there's Bruno on the low side who's just watching back, hanging out in the back, watching this happen, and so is the 5 Holder.
Yeah, they're just kind of the cabooses in all of this. They're not that involved in the pushing. It's really the 15 pushing the 24 and the 7 pushing the 9, and they're just kind of hanging out, hoping that, you know, listen, we'll take the top 6 if you're the 7 to the 5, but I think overheated a little bit. Keith Stewart, you can only push like that for so long, and we certainly brought it up early, but I haven't been talking too much about it because we haven't seen these packs, and Keith Stewart, I think, had to jump at a line to breathe, but he fell way too far back. Luckily, there's trucks there to pick him up, but the 7 machine was way too lax on getting back in line, and if there weren't trucks behind him, he would have just lost the lead of pack. Good for him is that Sean Ryan will pick him up, and I'm sure he'll be back up front in a moment as we see a couple of trucks thinking about creating a 3rd line. It's Doyle Lawrence on the outside, the 56 to Kerry Allen Stewart. They don't do it yet, but here we go. Everybody's found each other now. It's one big group battling for the race lead.
I was watching that second pack grow closer and closer, and the 7 getting shunted out just helped them. It's one big pack now through the tri-oval, coming to just, what, I think 8 laps to go, actually. across the line, it's still going to be the 9 and the 24 battling. Those two pretty much a dead heat across the line. After that, it's just a jumble of cars. Now Mike Bruno suddenly on the top line behind Brandon Holder. Brad Patterson behind the guys who kind of got rid of him earlier on in the race. So will he stay with them or will he try to go high? Sean Powell now in this as well, and he's got to win. He can do anything he wants here, Evan. He doesn't have to try and play it safe. He can honestly be as aggressive as he wants. And I actually was noticing the 8 truck is being very aggressive right now. Watch for him to make some moves here. He might have something for these guys ahead of him.
We will see. The problem is they need an opportunity, they need an opening, and right now it's the outside line, that third line, which still sits vacant, but nobody wants to make that move yet. If you go out there from third or fourth in line, it's a big gamble because it could be a one-way ticket to the back. If that 8 machine there, the 56, as previously noted, Lawrence, you keep thinking about it, you can go out there, and if it doesn't work, so what? You're just going to fall back to where you are now. But if you're the 19, there's problems. The 7 Case Stewart's going to get turned. Caution flag at lap number 88. Also spinning, playoff driver Scotty Reinshield is around, but Keith Stewart, who is already in a tough spot into tonight, is involved in an accident coming to 6 laps to go, and that'll kick him to the back, and we will have one more restart on this race.
And then apparently also the 20 of Malik Ray apparently is going to get the lucky dog. He was currently in 17th at the time, and he still is. But the one thing that I noticed coming through the travel, there was also a close moment there, just as pretty much just before that lap, that wreck happened, is that the 9 of Brad Neer tried to get in front of the 24 of Everett Lane. He almost did. He did for about a half truck length, half truck width, I should say. And then he went back up to the top side. So there probably wasn't enough room for that 9. That probably could have costed that number 9 Brad Neer the race lead for the time.
And that is a huge play if Malik Ray is going to be able to get that wave by, because not all that long ago he was 2 laps down, stays out because we had already completed all of our green flag service, so he stayed out on the last yellow, gets to 1 lap down, and then it looks like he will beat out Tyler Hayes and James Hickson in the battle for the lucky dog spot, and should get that wave by to the race lead. It'll take it a long time, though, for this field to catch the pace car. They're just now collecting it in turn 4, so I still think this is going to go back green, but I think we may have lost a lap because of where that incident happened, and just now catching the pace car. This could easily be a one-lap shootout, or 2 at most, I think, as the field catches back up, and the plot thickens. These yellows hurt a lot of playoff drivers, but may have saved just a couple of them as well.
Yeah, definitely save some of these playoff contenders, especially, again, back to the 9 and the 24. The thing is, though, for this restart, it's going to be pretty close, though, as the 9 and the 5, Brad Neer and Brandon Holder, they're going to have to be on their toes as much as possible because they have the teammates on the inside, the 15 of Mulzik and the 24 of Everett Lane, so right now they're also going to have the 42 right behind them, another non-playoff contender, and then just like the first restart that we had, it's going to be Sean Powell on the top side, so it's going to be 3 non-playoff contenders versus 3 playoff contenders, and there goes the 20 on the top side.
He does get that pass on the outside of the racetrack, just like that. Malik Ray is going to get back onto the lead lap and has a shot at defending his risky 4-point advantage over the cut line that he had coming into this evening. These last 2 yellows doesn't happen. He's probably well down and into the gray, headed into that last race of the round next week, Kansas Speedway, right here, LSR TV in the iRacing Sports Network, when we will finalize the round of 8 and then head into the last 4 weeks of the season. But now, it's a weighted game until the restart. The anticipation builds up. We know it is going to be chaos. Good as time as any to remind you that this will be the final restart on the night. There is no overtime. There are no green-white checker finishes after the scheduled distance of 94 laps and 250 miles. Getting to the white flag is going to be a key. There is no do they or do they not throw the yellow when you're on the sim. When you get the white flag, you're racing to the checkers. And, well, if it's a 1-lap shootout, it handles that, but I'm thinking we're going to get 2.
Well, it will certainly benefit cars with the number 41 on them. But as we come to this restart, we might have 1 lap. I'm not sure if we're going to have 2. Got to watch the pace car when he comes around. this time and the next time. I think it's going to be 1, maybe 2, but either way, talk about Malik Ray. He's getting his lucky dog here, and he really pitted at the perfect time. I didn't even think this was going to work at first, but he ended up getting that wave around the previous caution, and he was so lucky that a second one came out because it worked out perfectly that he was able to race in front of the 95 and 22, get that lucky dog, and now he's back in it with at least a chance to pass 1 or 2 vehicles, and that's points. It doesn't matter if it's for 15th or not. That's points, and that's going to help at Kansas because, yes, he has the speed to win and race his way in, but it's never a guarantee. We saw that at Dover. We thought he was going to be the favorite going to Dover International Speedway. Clearly, that didn't work out, and Sean Powell took the storm, or took the series by storm, and went back to his winning ways. So Malik Ray has to perform at the peak of his performance next week at Kansas, and then some. Honestly, Evan, but this at least helps. Getting that lucky dog at least helps.
Listen, every little bit certainly helps to minimize the damage, and with the lights on top of the race car having stayed on, typically we'd try to grab a driver, but I do not want to mess with Brad Patterson. He's scored at a P5 right now. I want to let him stay in the zone, but we'll use this opportunity to say a big thanks to him for being the title sponsor of tonight's race, the Darkmatter Designs 200. So big shout out to the 42 of Patterson. Hopefully he can lock up a top 3, and we'll have an opportunity to formally chat with him post-race. But under yellow, also want to say big thanks to our friends over at Bomb Track Fabrication, title sponsor of these 2018 playoffs. Bomb Track Fabrication specializes in building custom race cars and CNC machine chassis components for both the racing and the industrial sectors. All of their components are made in the USA. For more information on how to get free shipping and up to 5% off your first order, you can find them online at bombtrackfabrication.com. It's all one word. And again, a big thanks to them for being the title sponsor of these Bomb Track Fabrication playoffs. So we sit and wait with the drivers pacing right now 2 by 2. I'm going to guess they've been given the 2 to go, which means lights off next time, which would mean a 2-lap. Technically, I guess you could call it a green-white checker if you wanted to be a 2-lap shootout from Talladega. 17 trucks in the lead lap with Malik Ray all the way at the back in P17. And for as tame as this race has been, just taking a look to get an updated number, 23 trucks actively on the track, Gary, as we get set to decide this thing.
Let's see, 23 trucks, a 2-lap shootout, possibly. We'll see this time, more than likely, but this is starting to become familiar. What was somebody, goodness, unfortunately cannot recall their name, but I know somebody last week called this track the random number generator of chaos, and I have a small feeling that we may be seeing that on these final 2 laps. If not, then great. Well, then again, it's usual Talladega racing. Either you see it or you don't.
We are going to get the official word on the pace car this time by. Lights go out or not. Survey says yes, the lights are out. So we take lap number 92. The next time by, we will take 93, then 94. 2-lap to go shootout from the Talladega Superspeedway right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. And without warning, Andrew, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who wins this race?
Well, let's see. We're going to kind of just close my eyes, pick a number here. I'm going to point at one on my screen. It's the 56. Kerry Allen Stewart going to win this race.
Allen Stewart from 11th. That's going to be what? Maybe 0.4 of a second of difference at the restart. Your race leader, by the way, Everett Lane, Gary, went to the race lead from 20th on the grid, was leading after 3 laps. So I think all 17 of these guys got a shot. Who's your pick?
Well, I'm going to do what Andrew did. No, I'm not. I'm just going to see. Well, man, this is actually a pretty difficult choice. The thing is, there's also the playoff contenders on the top side. So with Brad Neer sticking up here, I feel like it's either going to be Brad Neer or Brandon Holder.
Those two can do. They have, I think, been the only two that have come close to challenging that Lane and Molzik duo. And the 24 and the 15 are not in a bad position. They controlled the restart last time. The 24 went a little bit early, obviously coordinated it with the 15. All of that to get the 15 tucked in line behind you. Well, now they're just doubled up, so don't have to worry about any of that gamesmanship. The 15 is going to be pushing as hard as he ever was, I promise you, coming to the restart line.
And Evan, I think, in all seriousness, I still have to pick a driver up in the front here, and it's going to have to be, I think, Brandon Holder or Sean Powell. Brandon Holder is in a pretty prime position to maybe play something on the outside line with those big runs down the straightaways to get around Brad Neer. Otherwise, I think Sean Powell's in a great spot. He can wreck out of this thing going for a win if that's what it comes to. He can go for it all right here, so I'd watch for that 41 truck.
Gary Allen Stewart's going to win this race. You're going to feel awfully silly about saying that from P11. We'll see the pace car heads down and in. This is the final restart on the night from the Talladega Super Speedway. It is Everett Lane in control of the field inside of the front row in the 24. His teammate behind him, green flag, as we look just to get to the white. The next time around, 2 laps to go from Dega.
What they have to do right now is Brad Neers get in behind that number 15 as quick as possible or step to the top side. That also works, but Sean Powell has completely other plans. He's going to go to the low side and go right behind that 15-24 duo, not even close to helping out the 9 or the 5.
Not a good news at all for those two, and as they see the outside now gain some speed out of back straightaway, the 9 gets a little bit more even. It'll stall out a little bit, the 19 drops low, so it's about even strength inside and out. Looks like Bruno decides to go on the outside of the racetrack. The 15, though, he's not looking at the gauges. He's pushing to the end of this one as he tries to get teammate Everett Lane the win, but not a Brad Neer right there looking for a playoff victory. Coming to the white flag, going to be 1 lap left to go.
Talk about a strong and intelligent restart out of those low-line racing guys, but now they still have a race on their hands, and it's fewer trucks than it would have been if they'd gone at the green, though. Brad Neer coming around the top side has help from Brandon Holder. I mentioned watch that 5 truck. He's in a great spot on the outside. Maybe they can move around the 9 when we come to the tri-oval. The bottom line now has no help. It's those 2 teammates as Sean Powell falls back. He's helping James Torrey. The top side, 4 trucks strong down into turn 3.
And those inside trucks got disconnected. Here goes to the inside, but it's the 5 who's not gonna go with him, and it is Brandon Holder outside. The 9's now gonna get picked up by those 2, and it is a 3 truck apiece drag race at a turn number 4. A ticket into the round of 8 between the 2 playoff drivers, but the 24 of Everett Lane bails on Brad Neer, and the 5, the only one with support left, he'll win from Talladega, and they'll wreck across the finish line, but it is Brandon Holder who will win, and he is moving on to the round of 8 as everybody now slides to a screeching stop.
A wild finish, an interval of 0.059 seconds. And my goodness, I was right when I said 9 Brad Neer or Brendan Holder. So I mean, I was kind of right, but my goodness, that 3 wide finish for second place was also amazing. I thought they were going to go 4 wide for a minute. I thought Brett Neer's actually going to try and hold off whoever was behind him at the time. I think that was 24 as well, but that was absolutely amazing job.
It's so close as the 24 was coming up through the middle, and I know there's absolutely no loyalty from the 24 camp of Everett Lane, but I think if Everett Lane stays on the back bumper, Brad Neer's going to be a race winner. Those 2 are both coming pretty much dead even, and at Everett Lane, the difference here is the 24 made a move to win this race. The 42 did not. I think Patterson thought about it, couldn't go anywhere, and he ends up pushing the 5 to the race win. Of course, there was a big wreck behind them with Sean Powell getting turned and another 6 or so trucks getting scrapped, but I think all of them, at least momentum, allowed them to carry across the start-finish line. What a finish.
Yeah, that was pretty spectacular through the trial. Well, 3 wide coming down to the line. Brandon Holder, though, just had the trucks behind him and make it happen. Of course, when you start making it 3 wide up the middle from the bottom, you're not really going to go anywhere, and you're just going to hurt the inside. The outside already has a bit of an advantage out of turn 4 through the tri-oval, and, well, Brandon Holder just happened to stay up top when the 9 truck Brad Neer arguably made the wrong move and went to the bottom side.
And in those situations, you're going to be thinking about it. If that 9 machine, for whatever reason, does to make it on, he's going to get a ton of points tonight. It should put him a little bit higher above the cut line than it was into tonight. But if for whatever reason Brad Neer doesn't move on, he's going to look back at this one and be kicking himself. But Brandon Holder, your race winner for the Talladega Super Speedway. We will step aside. When we come back, we'll chat with him, the rest of your top finishers. He wins, and he's moving on. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the eSpeed eSpeed Contender Series holder, your winner at a Darkmatter Designs 200. We'll talk with him when we come back.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing.
And we're back live from the Talladega Super Speedway following yet another wild restrictor plate finish. This one major championship implications as Brandon Holder takes the win tonight. It is moving on to the round of 8 as we welcome you back into LSR TV's continuing coverage of the eSpeed Contender Series bomb track fabrication playoffs with tonight's Darkmatter Designs 200. We will go trackside, join your top finishers on the pit lane momentarily. Before we do so, here's a look top to bottom at your LSR TV full race results. Holder with the race win. Brad Patterson comes home second and Everett Lane third, alongside your pole sitter Brad Neer fourth and Sean Molzik fifth. We will be standing by with all of them in just a little bit. Mike T. Bruno, though, just misses out on all of our post-race fun, so gets a lot of points out of this one. And his fight to get, I guess, 17th of the points is all that he's going for as he comes home P6. Sean Powell in 7th. James Torrey with an 8th place result. Marshall Berry, one of the only top 10 drivers at the start of this race to finish top 10, comes home in 9th, and it'll be Doyle Lawrence rounding out your top 10.
From track fabrication playoff contender, Paul Bliss comes home 11th place after getting the first of 2 lucky dogs on the first of 2 cautions. Kerry Allen Stewart comes home 12th. Then it's Gregory Thompson and Scotty Reinscheld after getting collected in that first wreck we had. Sean Ryan comes home after being collected as well. He comes home 15th. Keith Stewart 16th. Malik Ray, after getting that second lucky dog, only manages a 17th place finish. Then it's Tyler Hayes 1 lap down. James Hickson 1 lap down. And Timmy Logwood Jr. rounding out your top 20 from 2 laps behind the field.
And then the rest of the field, John Virgo 21st, 22nd Brian Lang, 23rd, 24th, and 25th are Tim Marlowe, Bobby Everhart, and Perry Snelson. Doug Lemons unfortunately got taken out late in the run, definitely running into a lot of bad luck for his playoff hopes. Brent Keith was also involved in that same wreck. He finishes 27th. 28th Doug Stout, and Matt Kingsbury unfortunately finishes last after hardware issues.
Look down at the bottom at your LSR TV full race results. Go down trackside and chat with your race winner tonight. It is Brandon Holder, who started in 7th position, and after quite the night with a late race yellow that changed it all, the 5 machine, next thing you know, he is going to be racing in the next round of the playoffs. Brandon, congratulations on the win. Just tell us about what a crazy night this was, from it going green for so long to then, of course, having to throw away the 70 or so laps that we had completed and just basically start from scratch. Good old Dega finish. It's exciting. Anything that could happen, and it's you at the end coming from behind to take the race win.
Yeah, man, I thought we made a big mistake being conservative at the start. I thought there would be some more cautions going, at the start there. But luckily we caught a break, got caught up, and was lucky enough to pull one out.
Of course, the major importance of this race win as you move on, but of course, a lot of drivers, I think, terrified of this race. We're expecting a lot more carnage. We did get some wrecked trucks. Most of them came coming across the start-finish line at the end of it all, but just talk us through how you approach this one. You talked about being very conservative. It was only a 7-point advantage for you above the cut line coming into tonight. If you don't get that yellow and you finish back of the pack, it's probably going to be a lot tighter than that. So was the idea to save, and evidently, I mean, it works out, but it didn't look like it for a majority of the night. How'd you try to play this one knowing that this race could be very good or very bad, and a lot of that was out of your control and just up to luck to a bit?
Yeah, I mean, it all boils down to the team working together. I think lap 2 we pulled down, went to the back, and I actually slowed down too much and kind of lost the draft there. And throughout the green flag run, we were losing to the pack, and then we decided to go in and take 2 and try to short pit him a little bit and gain. And then luckily the caution came out.
Going forward, obviously, this is a big mark to check for you guys because it was a very good, but I would say a little bit of a quiet opening round of the playoffs for you. You qualify into this round as the 4th highest driver of all of those who raced it around to 16. And now you're up there with the likes of Sean Powell, Malik Ray, the other drivers who have won races thus far in the playoffs. It's a big boost for you. Where's your confidence level knowing that you're now going to be in the top 8 trucks after we get through Kansas tomorrow, or I guess I should say next week, but at that race for you, pretty much just a formality now.
Yes, and I'm very happy for that. I was more nervous about Kansas than I was Talladega with the way you have to race there. And if someone gets a wall in front of you and you're running the high line, you can't miss them. It's a real tough track. So I'm happy about that. Really glad that I don't have to go to Kansas worrying about points. But we're going to work on the set and try to get the rest of the guys up into the final 8.
Well, you know that you're going to join them there, and then it'll be Martinsville, Texas, Phoenix in that round of 8. That a place that you could find success at as well, and maybe take this thing all the way?
I believe we're going to Watkins Glen for the first race, but yeah, I love all them tracks. Usually run pretty good there, and I've got a strong team that builds sets here. We don't have the power teams that has 100 people building sets. We've got a core group of guys that build good, consistent sets and give us a good chance any week.
It'll be the Carbon Collective 51 at Watkins Glen to open around. You're right. We'll let you get out of here, Brandon. They'll get to some celebrating, I'm sure. Before we do, though, anybody else you want to say hi to down here from Victory Lane?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this was a total team effort. American Motorsports and Intensity Motorsports, just everything worked out good. Pushed Brad out there to the front, and I was going to let him go, and then I had Patterson behind me pushing me really hard. So I went for the checkers, but like I said, it's a total team effort to build the sets. I like how this team works. It feels like Sturt-Haas looked at Talladega Sunday, but I also want to say one of my buddies, Kevin Steed's got some health issues that came up. I want to tell him that we're thinking of him, praying for him. And just LSR TV and everybody that makes this happen.
We appreciate the shout-out. We'll echo those thoughts, Brandon. Hope that he gets well. But we appreciate your time here tonight. Again, congratulations. You're headed to the round of 8 as the race winner tonight from Talladega. Best of luck going into Kansas. Hopefully it's a little bit of a stress-free race for you. And we'll catch you at Watkins Glen for the next round.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Race winner tonight in the Darkmatter Designs 200. And speaking of Darkmatter Designs, well, we gave a shout out to Brad Patterson earlier on as the driver who was sponsoring this race, and we said, well, hopefully he gets a top 5 finish so we can chat with him. Well, he did, and he got a P2 tonight. He is standing by with Andrew.
And Brad Patterson, you were in the front most of the race. You came from 23rd position. You come home second place when it's all said and done. What a show. How did you manage to finish second place?
I'll tell you what, I was a single truck in a sea of teams, that's for sure. I didn't have a whole lot of help, but I had to just kind of pick my spots and wait for them to start really battling amongst them with their teams and be able to slide into where they didn't want me, basically.
Yeah, that was certainly evident when you were trying to tango with the 24 and the 15 that they certainly were running their agenda, and you and Mike Bruno were kind of just left there to try and hang on. But either way, it came down to it, and on that last restart there, you were in a great spot. You come home second place. But do you feel like you could have won?
I don't know. I mean, that was one of those really weird situations where I was literally surrounded by 6 teammates. From the entry in 3 when I picked up Holder to coming out into the trioval, I was checking my mirrors, trying to see if I could take it to the outside. Nobody was there behind me. In fact, the teammates were forming back up. At that point, it was, in my opinion, it was just better to latch on and try to secure second than fall back to possibly 4th.
Well, you ended up getting second place by 7/1000ths of a second. Before we let you go, first off, tell us about Darkmatter Designs.
Darkmatter Designs is a custom fab shop for cars. We do everything from body kits, full metal fabrication body kits, to hot rods and everything under the sun, more or less. If you want something done and you're in the Orlando, Florida area or whatnot, you can look us up and we'll be able to take care of you. We have several cars, SEMA, and other cars upon that nature. So we do a lot of good stuff, a lot of good work.
We certainly did some good work to get second place. Who else do you have to thank for this big run tonight at Talladega?
Obviously my teammates, 1552, Carbon Collective, you guys for putting on the broadcast, of course Keith for putting on the whole series. This is some place that we really enjoy running, and also Rogue Energy and Icon.
All right, man, thanks for your time, and hopefully we're talking to you next week from Kansas.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
And that was Brad Patterson, your second place finisher, Gary, but I hear you're downstairs with Everett Lane, a guy who was really helping to control this race for most of the race, comes home third place.
Sitting here with the number 24 of Everett Lane. Even though he had some bad luck a few weeks back over in Richmond, he still prevailed and came on with a top 3 finish here at Talladega. So definitely a great performance by you today, Everett.
Well, thank you, Gary. We had a good piece tonight. I had a good teammate behind me the whole race, and it was fun to race up front for a while. It's been a rough 3 weeks, making the chase and then having been wrecked out 3 races in a row, but it was fun to race up front tonight.
Now it's definitely exciting and completely, definitely Talladega style as per usual. Definitely Talladega doing its own very fun, exciting finishes, and somehow you managed to work your way through to almost 4 wide to that third place position through the travel at the end. But with those cautions, were you expecting those a little bit essentially that late in the run, or were you expecting cautions essentially right off the bat?
Well, we were expecting some early, but everybody settled in and did some good hard racing on this 2.5 mile super speedway, and we were running along, me and Sean. We had Mike Bruno from Gen X running there with us, which was a really good help for us. And we were hoping we weren't going to see no cautions because I think we had the field pretty much covered. But that caution gave that Brandon and Brad that second win and brought them up to us there, and we had a nice 4 wide finish there at the end.
Yeah, it's definitely very exciting. So, of course, before we let you head out here, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to for your third place finish here this week?
I definitely want to thank Fast Lane Racing, Low Line Racing, eSpeed over here, and LSR TV. You guys do a good job up here.
As always, it's very amazing to watch these races. Congratulations again, Everett Lane, on your third place finish.
Thank you, Gary.
And now we will throw it back to Andrew, who is standing by with the number 9 of Brad Neer.
And Brad, you started on pole position. You went all the way to the back, then came all the way back to the front. You were battling for the lead, and when you came across the line, you were just ever so slightly behind the 42 and the 24. From leading the race into turn 3, you come home 4th. How did that last lap shake out?
Well, it's a little heartbreaking to lose one, but if I'm going to lose one, I don't have a problem losing it to Brandon. We kind of got off center coming down the back straightaway there, and I went low because these bumpers are like Velcro, and it's real easy to hook the guy in front of you, and Brandon got the win. It was a pretty conservative race. We were worried we went too conservative, but we caught a lucky break with that caution, and it was should relieve some of the stress going to Kansas next week.
Yeah, for sure. It's certainly a good points night, especially compared to some of the guys like Malik Ray who finished well below you on the sheet tonight. So you come home 4th place, and you mentioned feeling a little bit safer going forward to Kansas, but Brandon Holder mentioned his fears going into Kansas, almost like a Darlington race where you're up against the wall, and if somebody makes a mistake in front of you, there's really nowhere to go. How do you feel going to Kansas Speedway?
Still pretty nervous because, like you guys said, the fastest line is up top, and the guy in front of you gets in the wall, and you're on top of him before you can get slowed down.
Yeah, definitely. Almost like again, Darlington in that way, and even like tonight at Talladega, but tonight was very calm. What does this mean? I guess going forward in the chase, and how far? Sorry, not the chase, but the bomb track fabrication playoffs. How far do you think you can go?
Well, I think if we have a good run next week at Kansas, I'm really looking forward to Watkins Glen. I think, the next round is really got some strong tracks for Intensity Motorsports and America Motorsports. We've just really been working well together, building, good competitive sets, and we'll get through Kansas. And then I really am looking forward to Watkins Glen.
We'll be watching out for you, Brad. It was a good run tonight. Who makes it happen for you back at the shop?
Well, I've got to thank LSR TV, HPP Pedals, Devour Frozen Foods, and Racing Line, and of course America Motorsports and my teammate Keith Stewart.
All right, thanks for your time, Brad, and hopefully again we're talking to you next week at Kansas.
Yep, thanks guys. We'll see you next week.
And now back down to Gary Weaver. Gary, I hear you're standing by with the driver of the 15 who was in tandem with the 24 all night long.
Yeah, stand here with the teammate of the number 24, Sean Molzik. Well, Sean, you gave it all you could, both you and Everett Lane, and you still managed to come home with at least a top 5 after a very dominant performance, almost Stuart Haas-like, essentially, compared to this past Sunday. That was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is a coincidence, but I actually went to that race Sunday, so I kind of took that into effect with Everett because I knew, with two of us not being in a chase, we were just going to go out and try to win the sucker. And for the first 80 laps, it looked like we had it made. Then the caution came out, and we made it harder for us.
Yeah, with those cautions, were you expecting them to happen a little bit earlier in the run that we've had? Because it came out pretty much the first one was essentially second half of the race.
Well, I knew it was going to get spread out because, it was really shocking within the first couple laps. It literally about half the field just bailed out and just went to the back, and that allowed me and Everett to essentially get right up to the lead within the first 5 laps, and we just pretty much stuck there until, they bunched us all back up with that caution.
Well, it definitely helped out to give your teammate a top 3 finish. So before we let you go, anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to for your top 5 finish here this week?
Well, obviously Everett, Paul, and everyone over at Lowline. It's an excellent team, and especially to Mike Bruno for sticking with us, because I think he really contributed with our success because he stuck with us pretty much the whole race until we got shuffled out there. So shout out to him and Brandon for the win.
Well, we are going to go ahead and let you go. Congratulations once again, Sean Molzik, on your top 5 finish here this week.
Thank you, sir.
Now we will throw it back over to Evan Pasoko.
Yeah, big thanks as always to our drivers for lending us their time post-race. Brandon Holder, Brad Patterson, Everett Lane, Brad Deere, Sean Bolzik, all for humoring us. They go race for 2 hours, so we always appreciate the insights that they can give us by sticking around a little bit extra. Obviously, Brandon Holder's got a lot to be excited about, especially when you consider how afraid he was maybe of Kansas next week, that he has punched his ticket into the round of 8. He joins Malik Rayshad Powell as the only other race winners thus far in the playoffs, and of course he and Powell now the only 2 drivers who are locked in to that round of 8. Kansas could be a crazy race despite the fact that it's a little bit more of a mellow racetrack. The fact that you do have to ride up putting outside, a lot of drivers aren't a big fan of it, and I think a lot of big point swings, Gary, that we saw added tonight is going to make that one for a must-watch next Wednesday.
Yeah, completely shuffled the order just from the rough thing that I've got, but of course there's still a little bit more, so definitely have to wait until the official word comes out. But with all of the points that we had that were so close to each other coming into this race, I am very interested in what's going to happen next week, because the point standings were essentially completely shuffled from the looks of this. So next week, Kansas, again, top line is essentially the preferred lane, and you have to watch out for that outside wall as well.
Outside wall, you can get up and into it so easily, and I think because the points were so tight coming into this, that the shuffle's really going to hurt some people. And again, we don't have the official points, so you could keep an eye on our social channels, and we'll get that to you probably by the end of the week here once Race Control does their review. Of course, they do have random telemetry that they check. The number 28 machine is the one who is going to be inspected this week, and then they'll let us know what the official points are. But we head into Kansas with Talladega now behind us, Andrew. One race left at around 12, and two drivers already moving on. You compare that to what we saw Malik Ray win all three races at the round of 16. So there's a lot less points, or I guess I should say a lot less spots available based on the points as we head into next week and send four drivers home.
Yeah, things are still wide open going into Kansas next week, Evan. But, of course, you have to lean in favor of the couple of guys at the top of the point standings. I'd say the rest of the top four that isn't locked in just yet. And then pretty much Malik Ray. I think those are the guys to watch out for next week, to really keep an eye on, because if you're up top, you can't mess up, and next week it's going to be easy to mess up. But you also have to watch the bubble line, just like any other race. So really, you got to look at the whole field. I think it's so crazy that things work out this way. You have that big surprise for Malik Ray at Dover to get wrecked out so early, and then only gets up to 17th place tonight. And things are still wide open. We had issues with Matt Kingsbury, Doug Lemons, Brent Keith, and more. So I really cannot wait for next week's race at Kansas.
And it could have been a lot worse for Malik Ray tonight. Of course, he trapped a lot down for a substantial amount of this race, but I think he's certainly going to be kicking himself because he may have spent too much time on pit road there late. Just was not able to catch back up to the field in time, and that's why he finished all the way down the running order in 17th position. The one thing we can tell you is you are not going to want to miss that one next week for the Kansas Speedway. But for us here tonight from Talladega, that does it. We do have one more race coming up this week on LSR TV. Your home for sim racing tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. It kicks off our coverage of the Sestra Series. That one over on the LSR TV channel. And then that is it. We've got 5 races coming up next week. You're going to want to catch all of them. You can find that full schedule on our website. Go to www.livesimracing.com for more info. And as we've already mentioned, the best way to stay engaged is by being with us on social media. You can like us at Facebook at facebook.com/LSR TV official. Of course, you can just search LSR TV. That'll do the trick as well. Or you could follow us over on the Twitter side of things. That is at LSR TV for more information. Until next time, though, on behalf of our entire team at Live Racing LLC, the folks behind the scenes, and of course all of us who make it happen night in and night out in the booth. For myself, Evan Pasoko, for Andrew Cardinale, Gary Weaver, and our producer, Hugo Louise, we want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Brandon Holder. He is round of 8 bound, and we'll find out the rest as well next week from Kansas. That race coming on October the 24th, right here at LSR TV and the iRacing Sports Network. Until next time, though, good night from Talladega.